Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy, the last of the Victorians, lived well into the 20th century, the 1900s, in which he was acknowledged as both a major novelist and major poet. During his long career, he developed his local area of Dorsetshire into an imaginative geographical district known as Wessex. Hardy, son of a master mason and a former maidservant, lived his early life in a thatch-roofed cottage in the hamlet of Upper Brockhampton, a beautiful rural area that he depicted with much charm in Under the Greenwood Tree, 1872, and with threatening fatalism in The Return of the Native, 1878. Although he attended schools in nearby Dorsetshire, he was self-educated after his 16th year when he became apprenticed to an architect. Since it was his early ambition to become an Anglican minister, he taught himself Latin and Greek and read widely in theological works. However, the reading of such works as Darwin's The Origin of Species and the Biblical Criticism of Essays and Reviews, 1860, led to his abandoning religious belief. Although he began his literary career by writing poetry, he turned to novels as a more certain way to publication. His first work, Desperate Remedies, 1871, was a sensation novel, but more characteristic of his talent for peasant characterization and rural setting was his pastoral comedy, Under the Greenwood Tree. A Pair of Blue Eyes, 1873, a love story with melodramatic episodes, caught the attention of Leslie Stephen, editor of Cornhill magazine, who invited Hardy to contribute a fictional serial. For this novel, Far from the Madding Crowd, 1874, Hardy created the first of his celebrated heroines, the headstrong, passionate landowner, Bathsheba Everdene, who captures the love of three suitors. The success of this work, many thought George Eliot was the author, allowed him to marry Emma Gifford, whose social pretensions caused Hardy grief and embarrassment as the years passed. The Hand of Ethelberta, 1876, makes it clear that Hardy was unable to write about higher social spheres, but The Return of the Native, set with brooding fatalism on Egdon Heath, shows that he could create genuine tragedy in the novel form. Clym Yeobright, drawn inexorably by the dark beauty of Eustacia Vi, marries her only to find that she had hoped to escape from his beloved Heath. After episodes involving nighttime trysts on the Heath, ill-directed love affairs, and accidental deaths, Clym is left nearly blind and overcome with guilt for the circumstantial disasters that have taken place. Neither The Trumpet Major, 1880, an historical novel set in the Napoleonic period, nor A Laodation, 1881, a melodramatic romance, nor Two on a Tower, 1882, the story of an astronomer's conflicts between love and a scientific career, are among Hardy's successes. His next works, however, exhibit full tragic power. The Mayor of Casterbridge, 1886, presents the fall of Michael Henchard from his position as a wealthy grain dealer and mayor of the town when the results of an early act of drunken folly rise up to damage his life. He had sold his wife and child to a sailor at a fair. The Woodlanders, 1887, tells the story of Giles Winterbourne and his love for Grace Melbury, whose social position sets her beyond his reach, of Grace's ill-judged marriage to a faithless young doctor, of Marty South, the peasant girl whose devotion to Winterbourne is never rewarded. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, 1891, Hardy's finest achievement, follows the pathetic career of Tess Durbeyfield, who is seduced by her supposed cousin Alec d'Urberville. After her illegitimate child dies, Tess meets a young man of good family, Angel Clare, who finally persuades her to marry. When on the wedding night she tells him of her former lover, Clare leaves her, and Tess sinks into the life of a failed laborer. Reunited by chance to Alec, she is discovered by Clare when he returns. Distraught, she kills Alec, and after flight with Clare, she is arrested and hanged. Hardy's comment that the President of the Immortals had ended his sport with Tess drew widespread criticism, as did his subtitle, A Pure Woman Faithfully Presented. The Well-Beloved, a potboiler appearing serially in 1892, preceded Hardy's naturalistic novel, Jude the Obscure, 1895, which reflected his early struggles to educate himself. Jude Folly, an orphan villager, yearning to attend Christminster University, teaches himself Latin and Greek, but his ambitions are blunted when he is trapped into marriage by the sensual hoyden Arabella Dawn. When Arabella leaves him, he travels to Christminster, only to find that his class position blocks admission to study. His attraction to his cousin, Sue Brighthead, an impetuous feminist, leads him into a common-law marriage. Poverty and misunderstanding cause Jude's son to hang himself and the other children. Sue breaks down and returns to her elderly husband. Jude is reunited to the scheming Arabella, but dies alone and neglected, reciting Job's curse on the day he was born. Hardy bore such a fusillade of criticism in response to the unorthodox behavior of his characters, and the horrors he arranged for their lives, that he resolved never again to write fiction. He returned to the poetry of his early years and drew together a collection of old and new work, Wessex Poems, 1898. With this venture, Hardy inaugurated a new career, during which he published 7 volumes of lyrics and narratives, the most important of which were Poems of the Past and the Present, 1901, and Time's Laughingstocks, 1909. He developed a distinctive style that hovers between colloquial speech and overly formal archaic diction. His rhythms tend to be harsh and his syntax is sometimes stiff or awkward, but this style is not inappropriate for his view of life, which shows the world to be full of sorrows, unfulfilled desires, chance disasters, lack of human communication, and griefs caused by sexual problems. Human life is seen as driven by powerful determining forces, both natural and social, but also crossed by mischance. The concept of God that appears in the poems is that of a being who has forgotten the world or who operates the universe as a blind automaton. Hardy's bleak outlook is most fully developed in his poetic masterwork, The Dynasts, 1904-1908, an epic drama of the Napoleonic Wars. His autobiography was published posthumously under the name of his second wife Florence Hardy as The Early Life of Thomas Hardy, 1840-1891, and The Latter Years of Thomas Hardy, 1892-1928.